Today, we're going to break down a word that is powerful, painful, and honestly very often misunderstood: genocide. We're going to tackle two huge myths that really get in the way of understanding what this word actually means.
Okay, so let's just jump right in with the question that's at the heart of so much confusion. If this group really went through a genocide, how come there are still millions of them left? It feels like a paradox, right? But it's actually based on a huge misunderstanding of the word itself.
And that leads us straight to the first big myth we need to bust: the annihilation fallacy. This is the idea that for something to count as genocide, a group has to be completely or at least almost completely destroyed. But is that actually what the definition says?
Well, here's the real difference. The myth treats genocide like it's a final score in a game, something you tally up after all the destruction is done. But the reality, the legal reality, is that genocide is a process. The term was literally invented to help us spot that process while it's happening, so we can stop it.
And look, this isn't just someone's opinion. It is baked right into the legal foundation of the word. The 1948 Genocide Convention, that's the international agreement that defines the crime. It was designed to be a shield, not a tombstone. Its whole point is to be preventive, to give the world a way to recognize the crime early and step in before total annihilation is even possible.
To make this a little more concrete, let's try an analogy. Imagine a crime that we're just going to call jungle burning. Okay, so think about it like this. An arsonist wants to burn down the whole jungle. That's their intent. The moment they light that first match and the first few trees catch fire, we call the crime jungle burning. Why? Because the process is started. You'd never say, well, hold on, 90% of the trees are still standing, so it's not really jungle burning yet. Of course you wouldn't. You name the crime so you have the justification to put out the fire. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. The entire point is to recognize the pattern, the intent, and the first steps of the process, so you can stop it. Waiting until the very last person from a group is gone to finally say, okay, now it's genocide. Well, that completely defeats the purpose of the law in the first place. So that brings us to the second big myth, the numbers game. This is the idea that genocide is basically just another term for mass killing, and that it's all about hitting some kind of horribly high body count. Let me pose a scenario for you. Imagine in one conflict, 50 people are killed as tragic casualties of a civil war. In a totally different situation, 50 people from one specific ethnic group are systematically hunted down and murdered. The number is exactly the same, but is the crime the same? According to international law, absolutely not.
The crucial difference, the thing that separates genocide from other terrible crimes, isn't the body count. As tragic as every single death is, the defining legal factor is something else entirely. It is
intent. That one word is the absolute cornerstone of the crime of genocide. It's not about how many people were killed, it's about why they were killed. So what does genocidal intent actually mean? It means there's a specific provable goal to destroy a group. Not just to kill a bunch of individuals, but to destroy the group as such. It means people are being targeted for who they are, simply because they belong to that group, and the ultimate goal is to erase that group from existence, whether in whole or in part. And this intent, it isn't just some vague idea. It has to be proven through a pattern of very specific actions. And notice something really important here. Only the first one on this list is direct killing. The convention also says that causing serious harm, creating conditions where people can't survive, stopping births, or stealing a group's children, all of these are acts that can prove the intent to destroy a group.
So this really shows you the legal hierarchy here. The number of victims is, of course, a horrific and important part of the story. But in a court of law, it's the perpetrator's intent that is the single deciding factor. So here's the takeaway, and it can be a little mind-bending. A campaign that only manages to kill, say, 50 members of a group of 10 million people can still legally be genocide. If it can be proven that the plan, the intent, was to destroy that entire group, the crime is defined by that intention, not by how successful they were at carrying it out.
So why does all of this matter? Why get so deep into legal definitions? Because at the end of the day, these are not just academic arguments. How we use this word has massive, real-world consequences for justice, for intervention, and for how we remember history. And that leads to a pretty sobering final thought.
And this is where it gets tough. The source material argues that sometimes, when people insist on these myths, it's not because they're genuinely confused. It can actually be a deliberate political choice, a way to deny that the crime is even happening and to avoid any kind of accountability. And that really leaves us with a critical question to ask ourselves anytime we hear these debates. Are we listening to someone who's just honestly mistaken about a really complex term? Or are we witnessing a calculated attempt to avoid a terrible truth by hiding behind these twisted definitions?
Ultimately, it forces us all to confront one last, powerful question. When we fail to call a crime by its proper name, whether we do it out of ignorance or by design, what is the ultimate cost? What does that failure mean for the victims, for justice, and for that promise of never again? That is definitely something worth thinking about.